Hello, today I will be going over case study 2. I'm sorry that I couldn't be in class today. Today I will be giving my answer for case study 2 by going over the past situation briefly with each family member and the present situation at hand and support/resources within Sudbury available for each family member. Let's begin with assessing where Sue is. Sue is the mother, and previously she had trauma, grief, substance abuse, anxiety, and depression. Moving into the now, Sue had attended an addiction treatment and trauma counseling at a healing lodge. She also upgraded and is presently enrolled in college. She continues to show no interest in her culture, but has improved relationships with her family and her new friends. When looking at Sue in the present moment, I take into consideration that she is doing better currently, which means that the counseling for trauma has been effective to a certain level of extent. I would suggest that Sue still has sessions with the counselor, depending if they were weekly or bi-weekly, perhaps laying the option out of meeting once a month just to keep everything in check. There is an organization called Chicago McQuay. Angela is a counselor that works at Chicago McQuay, and she does use the culture naturally in her work. This could potentially help bring culture to Sue's attention, leaving that door open as a potential possibility. As mentioned, she is currently enrolled in college. I would have a conversation and see if she's potentially open and interested in checking out the resources available to her at the college that she's attending, such as learning centers for support, financial supports. Not saying that she needs this currently, but helping her see the potential resources available for her if she does need them throughout time. It never hurts to create that backup plan. Now we'll move on to the grandmother, Sue's mother. In the past, the grandmother was enabling and experiencing feelings of guilt from doing so. Currently, the grandmother has attended Al Anon and has developed healthy boundaries. In terms of moving forward, I would speak to the grandmother in terms of Al Anon and potentially setting up monthly touching base check ins to ensure that things are running smoothly and that any potential challenges she might face in the future with boundaries, she at least will have someone who does keep in monthly contact with her to check in and to provide that support. So, again, monthly check in meetings just to ensure that things are going smoothly. Moving on, we will now discuss the stepmom, which her name is Mary. Mary, in the past, she was concerned about the children, took on all responsibility of parenting. Presently, Mary developed healthy boundaries and now provides support only and does not tend to the children's needs, but rather refers to Bob. Mary offers support to Bob and participate in family activities. This one was a bit tricky. Presently, I would suggest for Mary that she takes part in family activities where they can do cultural things together with Bob. So one of the organizations which is within Sudbury is Apano, where they host family activities. So you can definitely contact them and figure out when those nights are. And then figure out these options so that she could spend time with Bob and the children in a healthy and cultural setting. Moving on, we will now talk about Bob, the father. In the past, truancy officer contacted Bob with concerns about the children. Due to the kids missing school, they had no lunches, etc. Presently, Bob was able to get a steady job closer to home. Bob and Sue are able to communicate and make decisions together and divide responsibilities for the children, and Bob adheres to his responsibility as a parent. Although Bob is doing great as of right now, I think potentially referring him to a parent support group that he can drop into when he feels fit could be helpful as a resource. I will let him know about the Triple P program, which is a group that runs. It is a space to go talk to other parents. Also, social workers are involved in facilitating this group, even just for some advice on every common day issues. It is there to support the potential risk of parents returning back to old behaviors, habits, etc. This could be potentially helpful for Bob. Another support is Dad's Night, which is it's just newly created that is run at Better Beginnings, Better Future, which will allow him to spend quality time with his children and building that sense of connection and healthiness between that connection and relationships. Now we will discuss the kids. We're going to start with Randy. Randy is age 13. Previously, he was fighting. Presently, he no longer fights and has informed his therapist that he is transgender. Technically speaking, we would be referring to Randy as she and her, not he and him, depending on the context. So, as a therapist or counselor, you would ask the person, in this case Randy, what pronouns they would like you to refer to them as. This is crucial. In terms of support, you absolutely would strive to make a referral for Randy. The program available within Sudbury that works with transgender or those on the gender spectrum is TG Inner Selves. One thing that TG Inner Selves is able to do is meet with the client or individual, so to speak, where they are comfortable meeting. So, for instance, discussing with Randy what they're comfortable with as the therapist and with the therapist. The direct client service worker, whose role is to work with transgender folks with TG, has the ability to even join in on a therapy session to establish that rapport and introduce themselves to the said individual. So, in this case, obviously, that would be Randy. The reason referring them to see someone works particularly with transgender folks is crucial because that lived experience is helpful to building rapport on a deeper level. TG also does referrals for doctors to start HB, which basically stands for hormone blockers, and name change forms, etc. So the list goes on and on. The prominent approach that TG and herself does is meeting individuals with where they are at. That is very client focused. They also can work with parents to help provide resources for the parents to better understand and become more aware of the challenges, barriers, and experiences that transgender individuals face. TG provides one on one counseling sessions to discuss the experiences of transition and that journey as well. They are strongly connected to Indigenous organizations in which they could provide, if needed, referrals for LGBT2S groups and support. This can help build with the cultural ties. Now we'll move on to Liz, who is currently age 11. Previously, Liz was not completing schoolwork. Presently, Liz received testing and support at school, and it has been identified that she has a learning difference and is receiving support with her schoolwork and doing much better. The reason I refer to it as learning difference is because it's a more encompassing, open word. There's a lot of stigma attached to learning disability, and I can say that from lived experience as well. Although it states that she has support, it isn't clear what support is there, as there is many forms of support for those who have IEPs, which stands for Individual Education Plan. One form of support is a tutor, ensuring that is set up for her in areas of course material that she may find difficult. Another form of support is accommodation planning. This is when there is a plan in place made for the student to ensure their accommodations are being met within the classroom setting and for assignments and tests. So I would just figure out if those things are in place first, and if not, there usually is a counselor at the school who can discuss with teachers about meeting and discussing a plan that will work most effective for Liz and her learning differences, so to speak, can also be known as case management in terms of teamwork context. Now we will discuss Stephanie, who is currently age 9. In the past, she was not socializing and isolating herself from other students. Presently, she receives support at school. She was referred to a therapist and diagnosed with GAD, which is General Anxiety Disorder, receiving treatment for such. I wanted to start with resources from non Indigenous organizations and move into cultural potential resources as well. The first resource available is Mindspace, a program for children and youth under ages 18 from the Child and Family Center organization. It is known that cognitive behavioral therapy, known as CBT, works well on GAD, which stands for General Anxiety Disorder. With this program, there is no appointment necessary. You can just walk in. They're there to support children living with anxiety, trauma, etc. Most other resources are older ages, and so I had to find one that works particularly for Stephanie's age. So that's something I did need to explore and look into. Another cultural resource, specifically catered to culture, is Chicago. They do host children's drum circles, so you could contact them as a worker to see what dates and times they are held on. Drumming is a way for anyone to release their emotions, and music is certainly healing. The heartbeat sound symbolizes the start of creation, so this is a potential option as well to explore. Lastly, we have Ryan, who is age 7 currently. In the past, Ryan had temper tantrums in the classroom. Presently, he receives support from school counselors and has been taught skills to communicate his needs rather than acting them out. So, although he is receiving support from the school counselor right now, it never hurts to speak to the parents in terms of outside school support that can be long term. There is the SNAP program at the CFC, so Children and Family Center, that is a 13-week evidence-based behavioral model that provides a framework for teaching children's ages 6 to 11, so he fits in that age range, particularly those who are struggling with behavior issues and their parents, effective emotional regulation, self-control, and problem solving. The primary goal of SNAP is to help children stop and think before they act and keep them in school and out of trouble. This could potentially be an option, as relying on only the school counseling support may not be sufficient enough for long term goals. Again, this is something you would discuss with the parents, keeping the door open and laying out potential options. Sometimes more than one form of support is actually beneficial. So you're building up that system of support rather than just one. So, one of the questions asked, is there any immediate risk factors? Currently, there is no immediate risk factors at hand. There are strengths as well that I want to discuss within this family. The first strength is resilience. The resilience to work on their individual selves to benefit the family overall to the best of their abilities, providing self support that naturally allows more support to be given. As well, it sounds like they're accessing some forms of resources to get the help necessary. Another strength is courage, courage to face the trauma and impacts of trauma that each is dealing with differently and impacted differently by. Overall, assessing the family's needs, I would say I would say, although these changes of improvement have been made, which is great, it's still important to have long term plans put in place. The last thing I wanted to share was laying the option out of the entire family having family counseling sessions together to ensure communication is kept healthy, which can be provided again at the CFC, Child and Family Center. So, overall, this is all I have to say about each individual family member. I hope that you enjoyed listening and that I was able to relay as much resources as possible, taking into consideration all different layers. Again, I use the word potential quite often because it is a potential option rather than a forced, suggested, advised option. It's always looking at all the different layers and really laying it out to the individual and ensuring that you're communicating to the best of your ability to hear the individual's needs and help support them with referrals to other resources that can be even more support systems. The more support systems that you can build around individuals, the better that is for results in long-term processes. So thank you so much for listening. Chimagwich.